Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for your patience with us kicking off this presentation, and thanks for joining us today. Welcome back to the NWR Vantage Point Conference and to the Lab Group Investor Presentation. Joining us today, we've got Lab Group CEO and co-founder Nick Boudry. I'll pass you across in a moment to Nick to present the Lab Group story. We'll have an intro to the business and then an opportunity for Q&A. If you'd like to ask anything during Nick's presentation, please type it in the Q&A panel in the Zoom app. So to kick things off, I'll hand across now to Lab Group CEO, Nick Boudry. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, hi, Tim. Thank you very much, everyone. Lab Group was founded about 10 years ago. We are a customer onboarding platform for financial services companies. We started in the full service stockbroking space, and that resulted in having to deal with a lot of complexity when it came to onboarding investors into financial service products. And that involves things like advisor-led onboarding, complex entities that have to be processed for those particular products and services, such as self-managed super funds, companies, trusts, accounts. So I suppose we started in a very complex space. Lab Group is a branded onboarding platform. So it's currently used by about 130 organizations, mostly in Australia, some overseas. We have about 20,000 investors that use the platform on a monthly basis. So in our history, we basically processed over 2 million investor applications onto the platform. And that is people applying for a particular product or service. So it could be an investor who wants to apply for a Macquarie Bank term deposit. They would go to the Macquarie website or through their Macquarie financial advisor. They would initiate an application to apply into that term deposit. They would actually use the Lab onboarding framework to go through that branded experience, electronic identity verification, and go into that product and service. We've estimated we've processed around about 60 billion invested through the Lab platform into the various different products and services across those organizations. And we have quite a lot of industry integrations and standardization of the platform so that we can plug into downstream and upstream systems to create a really an out-of-box seamless onboarding flow for investors. Next slide, Tim.
Yep.
So this is just a snapshot of our client base. As I said, we started more in the full service stockbroking space. And then in 2015, we penetrated more into the funds management space with the likes of clients like Vanguard. In 2017, we started working with transfer agencies like Citi and State Street, and registry providers like Link Fund Solutions. And what they do, they use the Lab platform to brand an onboarding experience out to investors in the market via branded online forms to their asset manager clients, basically. You can see that the client base is quite diverse across financial services, but we have actually started penetrating into the non-financial services sector. So that's in the form of Endeavour for Jimmy Brings, Dan Murphy's, and BWS, and that's for a use case around same-day alcohol delivery. So we are seeing some growth now in non-financial service clients as well. Next slide. So the technology is fundamentally split into three parts. One is the Lab platform, and that's, as I said before, the branded onboarding framework that's used by around about 130 financial services organizations. Then you have the application manager, and that sort of sits on top of the Lab platform, and that allows advisors, desk assistants to actually initiate applications on behalf of their investors to support that kind of complex onboarding workflow. Then we have Lab Verify, and Lab Verify is what the Lab platform talks to verify those various different entities. So if it's a trust self-managed super fund application with a corporate trustee and 2 directors, the Lab platform will talk to Lab Verify, and Lab Verify has integrations through distribution agreements and resale agreements into various different providers in the space, such as Equifax, Truly You, Kicker for company verification, and it goes off and does those verifications through that Lab Verify middleware. The Lab network is really about the connectivity of the Lab platform. So given we're a standardized platform and we're used across a lot of different organizations, the Lab platform is connected into upstream and downstream systems to facilitate customer origination. So if you're an advisor, you log into Xplan, You've got a client record, you want to put them into a Vanguard managed fund. You can push that client record from Xplan into the lab network to initiate a Vanguard managed fund application, pre-populated with all that client data. And then the lab network also enables the reuse of profiles within the network. So if you're applying for cash management for an equity stockbroking account with, say, Shaw and Partners, and you need a Macquarie cash management account as part of that overall offering, organizations that use lab are part of the lab network. So we can then clone that profile data into other instances of lab to sort of facilitate the supply chain of that service. Next slide. This is just a bit more about the actual lab platform framework. I'll briefly speak about this, but essentially you've got inflows of client data, either via a website, via an advisor channel, or via external systems like Xplan, as I mentioned. You've got all the fundamental building blocks of what you need to do when you onboard an entity into a complex financial service, including declarations, terms and conditions, and the relevant identity checks. And then you've got API that feeds into downstream system. As I said before, the application manager sort of sits across the lab platform and allows all that visibility from operations users, compliance users, and advisors. Next slide, Tim. So Lab Verify, as I said before, it's the middleware that the lab platform talks to. You can actually integrate with Lab Verify now directly if you wish. And you can see there the lab platform speaks to an API which connects to our middleware. We have business logic layer to run the smarts around what we need to verify, what scorecards we need to call, what services we need to call. So for example, if there's an application with two directors, one's a Singaporean resident, one's an Australian resident, the business logic layer is smart enough to route that off to the relevant provider in that space to provide a very seamless identity experience. Next slide. And this is just illustrating the use of the lab network. So this is about really connecting up the industry. So now that we've got 130 organizations on this platform and growing, we've got a significant amount of investment value flowing through the platform. We are in the realm of actually starting to create our own flows and channels through advisor networks and financial planning systems like Xplan or Class or BGL. So it enables the wealth system to basically connect to, say, in this example, the Shaw and Partners lab platform instance and feed that client data through. And then once it's within the lab platform, that then inherits all the connectivity into other downstream systems that are required for that offering. So as I said before, the cash provider for Macquarie for the cash management account, it may need to flow into some sort of downstream compliance system such as Comply, or it may need to go into another system for clearing and settlement purposes. So because Lab is a standardized platform, we've gradually built a lot of connectivity to industry systems, and that includes registry systems as well within the fund administration space. Just finally, before we get into questions, because I know we're pretty tight on time, I just want to highlight the tailwinds in this market that we're in are significant and they keep growing. So this talks about the regulatory market currently as it stands. I think from some highlights in this is that the total addressable market in Australia as a result of the new Tranche 2 legislation, which recently has been sent out for industry consultation by the Attorney General. So this is a really serious, real thing that's looking to happen now. That's going to lift the number of reporting entities to AUSTRAC from 15,000 to 150,000. So that's going to include accountants, lawyers, real estate agents, right? So Lab is really well positioned to address this. And we'll address that, I think, in some of the questions that will come through from Tim. Other things that have come through, you've got the Liquor and Gaming New South Wales. They've introduced a same-day alcohol delivery age verification requirement. And from the 1st of June 2024, when you order alcohol online in New South Wales for same-day delivery, you will need to verify your age. We have already engaged Endeavour Group and Woolworths to provide versions of the Lab platform and Lab Verify, excuse my cough, to essentially facilitate that process. We're seeing the Tax Practitioners Board as well introduce new legislation around mandating digital solutions for client verification. And then even in the Australian Communications and Media Authority, where we've got scam SMSs coming through, That use case is an example where a business like a dentist, for example, needs to sign up for automated SMS delivery for reminders. It's the vetting of that actual business that's signing up to that service and making sure they're a legitimate business and they're not just a fraud and scammer that wants to get 10,000 mobile numbers and ping out 10,000 SMSs to try and have some clickbait for someone to go into a fraud process. So look, Tim, I'm conscious of time, and excuse my cough, everyone. It's annoying and persistent, but I might just hand over to you for questions.
No worries, Nick. Thanks for that elevator pitch of the lab story. So just a couple of questions. Are you able to break down what's driving your pipeline growth between opportunities that are domestic versus international and in financial services versus the other ones that you spoke about?
Yeah, pipeline growth is coming for us. It's sort of split. Domestic growth of current customers is quite substantial. So we have long-standing accounts and relationships. For example, with Macquarie Bank, we've worked with them since 2012. A lot of our large enterprise clients we've worked with for 5+ years as a long-standing partner. So as the lab platform expands and we add new capabilities such as digital ID and international capabilities and product capabilities, what we're seeing is the expansion of the platform across more and more channels of these businesses that we're working with. So with Macquarie, for example, we started with the term deposit, and now we do their cash management account, term deposit, online trading account, and all their business banking. So we're seeing a lot of growth in our domestic client base as we start to build a lot more of these connectors and features and capabilities and expand the channels. The other big part of the pipeline is the non-financial service pipeline, which I highlighted before, and that's being driven by the tailwinds of all this regulation and legislation coming along. So we're actually seeing an increase in inquiries and opportunities in that space. And we predict that that's going to drive significant uptake of our capabilities. We're already seeing organizations that are coming to us for our pedigree in financial services, the fact that we've been around for over 10 years, we're a trusted provider, we're a trusted security provider around data, and we have the know-how in a highly regulated space that can be applied into that space. Internationally, as I said before, we work with global TA providers, Citi and State Street in Australia. We are looking to start to service institutional and corporate onboarding needs for multiple countries across large businesses that we work with, like IG, like State Street, and like Citi. And that's to start to expand on the global transfer agency opportunity in the institutional onboarding space globally that has really been left behind. It is still very, very paper-based. And given the complexity handling of our platform, we're seeing a lot of, we're expecting that to drive a fair bit of our pipeline in the longer term as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick. And just one more question. How do you view the pathway from your previous capital round to an exit strategy for investors, whether that might involve a trade sale or potentially an IPO at some point?
Yeah, look, we completed our first ever raise around about 2.5 years ago. And we've seen the way we've deployed that capital has been in a number of areas of the business. And we've seen the traction and increasing growth that we've experienced from deploying that capital, particularly around nurturing the existing domestic businesses that we work with. And we've seen evidence of that where we have deployed capital to nurture those particular organizations. So for us, we are open to more capital. And I think there's two parts to our capital raising story. One is probably a shorter term boost of capital to really capitalize on the market opportunity domestically in Australia to drive those two pipelines. So that's your domestic financial services growth plus your domestic non-financial services growth within Australia. And we expect that to kind of develop out the platform and the product to put us firmly in the crosshairs of the global transfer agency opportunity and potentially entering into a proof of concept in the international arena, which will prove, a longer term value of quite significant contracts in global TA going out into the longer term, kind of 3 to 5 years. So I think for us, it's probably an initial wave of capital maybe, not significantly more than what we raised prior, to just kind of boost us in the domestic space and those key pipeline opportunities, but then to also win more and provide some more support around a proof of concept in the European and Asia region around global TA that we're very, very close to negotiating. And then I'd probably see another further larger raise from larger private equity that will sort of set us on the course to really capitalize on that global transfer agency pipeline into the kind of years 3, 4, or 5. And I think that will set us up in a pretty right way for trade sale or IPO over the next kind of 3 years.
Excellent. We've just got, I thought it's worth just delving into one more question just while we've got you, Nick. This slide that we've got up here, you mentioned the Tranche 2 legislation that's coming in, which a lot of people on the call probably not familiar with, but is just such a huge opportunity for you guys. And so the question is, so with federal Labor now considering for anti-money laundering laws, how are you positioned to serve industries beyond your home industry, I suppose, of financial services, which may in the near future become subject to new regulations that relate to personal information?
It was all over the press in April around the Attorney General. So Tranche 2, rather than becoming a thing that might happen, is now a thing that will happen. We're very well positioned to service the non-FI space in Australia. As I said, we've already applied our technology into 2 enterprises for the same day alcohol delivery age verification use case. So for Tranche 2, it's probably going to be a 2-year journey. But for us, I mean, these organizations are out there in the market, real estate agents, and they really don't have a lot of knowledge in this space, and they really don't know much about what's coming. So the lab offering is, we have our core platforms, but we're very used to working in a consultation and project capacity with organizations. So 25% of our revenue actually comes from project consulting. So we're really good at providing the supporting technology platforms and the glue and the consultation and the project execution to actually stitch all these components together in a way that need to service these use cases in these industries that really have no prior experience in this space. So we're firmly footprinted in Australia, obviously. I mean, we've been around since 2010 with offices in Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne, and quite a large staff base here. So and a very good brand reputation. So I suppose as a sort of trusted provider in the space with, zero data breaches, very, very strong privacy and data protection regimes, and a very, very strong track record of that, working with the likes of Citi and State Street and Macquarie that have the highest standards in this space. We're really coming to these organizations with the pedigree and know-how. Also, I just want to finish up with saying that the connectivity is key as well. So Lab is very good at partnering with other systems like registries, clearing and settlement systems, financial planning tools. So in attacking the Tranche 2 space, you're going to be dealing with real estate CRMs, payments platforms in that space. So we're very good at integrating our platform into those partners, and having a process where a real estate agent might have 10,000 prior records and they need to identify it. And with the lab APIs and the framework, they can push those into our system to actually manage that whole process.
Excellent. Thanks, Nick. That's all the time we've got for the moment. So on behalf of the company, really like to thank everyone for tuning in. Appreciate everyone's interest in joining Lab Group today. If you have a question that we didn't answer today, or if you'd like to engage with the company regarding its journey and its growth plans, please reach out, and Nick and his management team will be happy to discuss that further offline. We'll also make the video recording of this session available at the NWR YouTube account. Looking forward to the opportunity to talk to you all again. And Nick, I might pass across to you now for any closing comments.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for the opportunity. I will close by apologising again for my persistent cough. But yeah, look, we're very, very excited around how we're positioned in the market now, and we kind of feel like there's a real perfect storm happening, and I think we're a surviving company in this space that has been around for a long time and has proven cash flow and persistent year-on-year growth. So I think as a potential partner that these organizations can partner with in the longer term, we're a very safe bet for them as well, and that's becoming very, very valuable in today's market. So yeah, I'll finish up with that. And thanks very much, Tim, for having me.
No worries, Nick. Thank you, and we'll catch you all again soon. Thanks.
All right, cheers. Bye.